video, I'm going to describe the constructing evidence-based explanations practice in the context of the Megafires rare occurrences, or the new normal data puzzle. So the goal of this practice is to help students finalize new understandings, new science ideas as they relate to the investigative question by constructing explanatory models. So as part of this practice, we really encourage you to utilize the facilitation strategies bulleted below and embedded in the slide deck. First, many students have limited experience working with and developing scientific models, so it's important to define and describe models, and we include an example for students to look at and analyze before they're asked to construct their own. It's often helpful for students to construct a gotta-have checklist, a list of ideas, concepts, and evidence that must be included in a model to fully explain the investigative question. And once students have constructed this gotta-have checklist, they refer to it to construct their final models, and that can be done either individually or in pairs. And the final piece of this practice is to challenge students to extend their thinking to apply new understandings to either a new scenario or to something related to, in this work, megafires that maybe we haven't explored explicitly yet. So with that, we first encourage you to dive into defining a model and why we're pulling everything together at this moment. So we've gathered evidence through an interactive reading and some data interpretation, and it's time to construct this explanatory model for the question how and why has the number of megafires changed over time. But we first need to look at a model and figure out what it even looks like, what should be included. And for that, we define and think about why scientists use models. These can be annotated sketches, computer simulation, 3D replicas, to visualize explanations to questions that they're investigating. And in scientific models, we should include these different components here, the relevant parts, how those parts are connected and related, and any data or evidence that we have that can support our thinking. So before having students construct a model of their own, I think it's important for them to look at a model to see what's expected of them. And so I think we utilize this model here related to something they might be more familiar with, Marvel movies, in this case, the Black Panther. And so this model is an explanation for the question, why does the Black Panther get stronger after being punched? And so we'd encourage you to have students identify these 3 bullet points here in the context of this Black Panther model before students are asked to construct their own final models. After discussing this model example here, we want to really reinforce the different signs and symbols that students can use to connect relevant parts, arrows to show movement, a key to define symbols, zoom in windows to help describe what's happening on a really small scale, timelines to show changes over time. So encouraging students to utilize these different signs and symbols. And then we have students develop the gotta have checklist. It's included on the student worksheet. So we'd encourage you to have students create this bulleted list of ideas and evidence that need to be in an explanatory model for the investigative question. And then if needed, develop this gotta have checklist as a whole class. So students would share out their ideas and their evidence, and everybody in the class would have to come to an agreement, a consensus, before it's added to the whole class gotta have checklist. So up to you whether or not you move to that whole class checklist. Regardless, students can then use that checklist when they construct their final models for the investigative question, how and why have the number of megafires changed over time? So again, they're considering the relevant parts, connection between parts, the evidence they may have, all pieces that should be included in that gotta have checklist, and annotating this graphic here to show how megafires have changed over time. So you can see this is a past, present, future template here, different temperature representing the different time periods, and we've got a key with some different symbols we want students to use to construct this explanatory model. After students have constructed their models, I think it's important for students to have an opportunity to share their work. Learning is collaborative, and so we want students to be learning with and from one another. So One of the most widely used sharing strategies is through a gallery walk, where student models are around the room taped to the wall or on desks, and students have an opportunity to move around the room and look and ask questions and think about what others have come up with. After this model sharing piece, we want to extend student thinking and challenge them to think about fires in a different context or a different scenario. And so we want students in this case to think about some actions forest managers could and have taken to reduce the number and impact of megafires in the United States. And we have a number of additional resources in the teacher guide that look at the management strategies that forest firefighters and managers have taken to reduce the number of megafires that we have, or try to reduce the number of megafires that we're having. So with that, that concludes the Megafires, Rare Occurrences, or the New Normal data puzzle.